Welcome back to the Madison Advisory AI Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Verner Thompson, founder of Madison Advisory AI. This show sits at the intersection of technology, leadership, and judgment. Because while AI is accelerating decisions everywhere, thoughtful human insight still determines whether those decisions actually create value. Today's conversation is a great example of that tension. Today, I'm joined by Brad Cummins, founder of Fat Agent and Insurance Geek. Brad started his career as an insurance agent, ran directly into the limitations of fragmented systems and legacy infrastructure, and instead of accepting them, built an end-to-end operating system for agents, layering AI on top of workflow, data, and compliance. This is not a story about AI can do everything. It's a story about what happens when you deeply understand a problem, design the right system, and then apply AI responsibly to scale judgment, not replace it. Brad, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Can you take us back to when you were an agent? What specifically wasn't working?
Everything. So I started as a captive insurance agent. And when you're working in one system with one carrier, especially on the PNC side, it's a lot easier to quote and compare rates and stuff like that. But once you start working with multiple carriers from the independent agency side, things can get a lot more complicated, and not just complicated, just more time consuming just to do your everyday basic tasks and jobs of quoting and, managing leads and stuff like that.
At what point did you realize it wasn't necessarily effort wasn't the problem, it was the systems themselves?
When we first started generating a lot of leads online, I got into an auction and I bought a domain called termlife-insurance.com. And back then, partial match or exact match domains were pretty easy to rank in top of Google. And we started ranking really well for the keyword term life insurance. And then we started generating hundreds of leads every day. And at the time, I was a farmer's agent. So we partnered with a call center out of Fort Wayne. And then we were forwarding those leads to them every day. And if they got called one time, after that, they probably were never touched again, and we're talking hundreds of leads, and I said, "Man, I gotta have a better way to manage this, to follow up, to, drip email them, drip SMS market, everything like that." So that's when I figured out, "Hey, I need to build Fat Agent and start building systems that actually work," using different, agency management systems and CRMs at the time, and I had to use 3 different ones, 3 different subscriptions that were over 700 a month, and none of them really worked together, so I just started building my own.
And so you didn't really build a single tool, you built an operating system. Why was that necessary?
Yeah, it's actually more CRM and agency management system, so we started with the CRM side, and it was necessary just to be able to do all the tracking and the communications and knowing, how your leads are being worked, as far as we call it tracking touches, right? So every email, phone call, and SMS is a touch on our end. So we can, better take our data and all the leads that we get and understand, hey, what's happening? Are they getting called enough? Are they getting touched? Have their quotes been sent? Are they reading the emails and the quotes we've sent? Are they clicking in to apply from the quotes we sent them in the email and have attached to their profile? So it's the whole life cycle of the lead is what we basically built Fat Agent for, and being able to just see the whole high level view, everything that happens from the lead generation to, putting that policy into place.
So what changes for the agent themselves when everything is in one or really on one screen or in one data set?
Simplicity, organization, close more deals, get paid more. So that's a lot. So everything is just simplicity, right? So what used to take 20, 30 minutes to be able to shop all kinds of different lines of business from one screen, I could shop your life insurance with 40 carriers, your long-term care insurance, your disability annuities, auto, home, condo, renters, all on one screen. And it's not a lot of additional data and manual entry. And then even when it is additional data, we got buttons we can click that'll pull in all the data from VIN numbers of vehicles, driver's license numbers, everything. So it'll pre-fill data and you could, move in between one line of business to another.
And for our listeners that aren't insurance agents, can you walk us through a concrete example of what you did before and now what you're doing after with with the system implemented?
Yeah. Well, we were using the three different softwares. One of them was for quoting, right? So we'd have to go load that data in there and quote from there. And then any policies we'd end up issuing, we'd have to go into another system and do our agency management of in-force policies there. And neither of those worked very well. And that was for the PNC side. When you got into the life insurance side, it was a whole nother CRM and management system. And so that kind of was the whole process, three different systems on three on working the same lead in three different ways, really.
Right. And I think that applies beyond insurance for any industry that's working with leads and follow-ups and even compliance, how one system can really just speed up and amplify an agent's success or one's success in the industry.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you add AI into it, it can get even crazier and simpler. So that's what we done. And then it's been a big journey. So
Let's talk about Patty. What tasks is she responsible for today?
Patty's awesome. So she actually you can talk to her by voice command and kind of give her an overview. But right now, current capabilities is the best part and the easiest part is for her to be able to reply to SMS and emails. So you would, talk to her, click a button, it'll record your voice, and then you basically we have prompts in there to where it'll output the email. So you could write a follow up email, and anyone who's worked a lead list all day knows by the time you get to the end of the day, there's a little bit of brain fog, and you want to make sure you're saying the right thing. So that's one of her capabilities is rewriting emails and SMS. So they're better than any human would actually write them. And then also Patty can handle your web chat. So your live web chat on your website. So she can be trained up on your product knowledge or your brand. And all you have to do basically is know how to cut and paste and then write in your knowledge for her, and she'll be able to handle any inbound chats and route them to the right places, give them the right information to the questions that the consumers are going to ask on your website, and she'll know and understand your brand. And then since we last spoke, we've come out with something even more amazing with Patty. So there's a new version of Patty coming out. It's called Patty Closer. And the what Patty Closer does is she's been trained up on a framework that I built. It's a sales framework, just over 20 years of experience in insurance sales. And one of the things that a lot of agents get stuck on, or salespeople in general, that they get stuck on is they don't know what to say and they don't know when to say it. So one of the cool things about Patty Closer is not only will she be able to see all the data of where the lead came from, so she'll know and understand, hey, is this a product type life insurance? Is it a term or an IUL? That's commodity versus a different type of sale. So she'll be able to know that and then go back in and read all of the um, history of the notes of the emails and the SMS. And then she'll actually give you you could ask her for a reply. And within our sales framework, she'll be able to go in and give you three suggestions, and you can just check one and select it, and it'll put it in as the reply. So, what's amazing about it, not just the simplicity, but knowing what to say, when to say it, and the right thing, but the reply rates that we're getting. Everybody that's ever generated a lead knows that that's the hardest part. The second hardest part is getting a hold of that lead. And then the third part is saying the right thing so they do engage with you. So we get a lot of leads. We've generated, 50, 60,000 leads in the last, 12 to 24 months. And so we know what it takes to be able to get those leads to engage. We've tried and measured a lot of different things, but Patty Closer is on another level with being able to get these leads to engage.
Life changing, I imagine, for a lot of your agents to be able to
It is,
have that in their
it's
hand.
It is unbelievable. I had one of our agents who was actually working on a really big, annuity case, and he could not for the life of him, he couldn't get the lead to reply, and he had a really good rapport, built up a great conversation. The guy was ready to move forward, and we ran it through Patty Closer after he had attempted 3, 4 emails on his own and a few SMS, no reply. Patty Closer, 1 SMS, engaged, and he ended up writing the deal, so it was pretty amazing.
And that does take it to the next level because a lot of the feedback in the market can be there's not a lot of response to AI generated messages because people don't want to work with AI. So it is a good take on it that this was AI generated, but she had so much information, Patty was able
Yeah.
to craft the message in a different
You
manner.
you can't the regular AI isn't doing this, right? This is a special agent who's been trained on a serious for sales framework, and it's on a different level, so that's the power behind it and saying what she's saying. You wouldn't know it was AI. You wouldn't know it was
And
AI.
I want to jump into two separate thought tracks here. First, when you were developing Patty, where did early attempts with AI fall short before you refined the system?
Man, it was a lot. So we originally built her, and we were trying to put too much product knowledge in, but we were using LangChain. And what happened was when you use that, you can use large data sets, right? And we tried to train it on over 250 pages on our website just to have it learn our product and our brand. And it was overkill, right? So we got it off of the Lang chain. But what was happening is the consumer would come in for a chat and then it would hallucinate, right? It would get caught in loops and it would ask the same questions. It wouldn't recognize their response. No matter what prompt I changed, no matter how well I changed the knowledge base in the settings, it couldn't figure it out. So we revamped the whole thing and we came back to a different method of architecture on it, and Patty don't miss. So you don't miss. So yeah, you can't trip her up. It's just it's pretty exciting stuff actually.
Where do you intentionally stop automation where judgment matters?
Patty knows that's one of the things is in your product knowledge and how you would train her for the chat. And this is dynamic stuff. So your product, your stop could be different than mine, but we have it trained up in our agency for Insurance Geek. Patty knows when to route to an agent and when not to answer the questions that she doesn't really know. So we have settings in there for that as well as instructions on the prompt. So it's one thing that every brand can do different. Like ours, we want to route, if she doesn't know, we'll route to a quote form. And if it's not a quote form appropriate, we actually have her provide a link that'll click to call, and the person in the chat could click it and it'll call directly right into an agent right away.
Okay. And in a regulated industry, how do you decide what AI should never do?
Oh, that's a good question. And there's not a lot of regulation on it, but we definitely don't have her giving financial advice. That's for one thing. So general insurance advice, right? But we get a lot of IUL traffic and leads through our IUL hub at Insurance Geek. So there are a lot of questions like that. So we stick to the fundamentals, right? Of, what it can and can't do. We don't talk performance and stuff like that. And that's kind of where we have. And then also Patty's not getting into your database at all. So that's another thing is, like, she's not getting into the database at all.
And you've been very candid about carrier infrastructure. What's
Mhm.
the real bottleneck there?
Legacy systems, they don't know how to they're not really good at coming off of them. 'em. They've been trying for years, and nobody's really good at it. The other thing is the exchange of information. They're using outdated stuff like Accord and SFTP, transactions of files and exchange, and that's kind of their way now, but it should be all webhook or API based, and they're just not there yet. I don't something we're working on getting them there with though.
What do you think would motivate or change the gating issues to get there?
Of premium and volume, um, power, right? So you bring enough premium to the table, and they're not going to have a choice. You're either going to get on board or you'll get left behind. So
So it'll come down to dollars and cents, really.
it's all it ever is about, right?
Can you tell us about Fat Ticket, the concept of it, and why
Yeah.
standardization matters?
Yeah, we're working on that right now. So it's a single entry application that of a part one life insurance application that can be submitted to any carrier. The problem right now is they use third party software and you have to go in and rekey all your data, and they call it in good order, which is never good order because they all ask the same thing in a different way, right? It's all same questions. Term insurance, right? Not hard. So it's just data. So we're working on a single entry application. It's a part one. And so far, even putting it on the front end where consumers can complete it, we've had a ton of success with it so far. And it's going to be a real game changer. So that's the next evolution is we're working with some carriers right now to be able to accept our fat ticket, which is essentially a part one life insurance application. And if that carrier ever declined it, then we'd be able to easily go to the client and say, hey, they didn't accept or they came back with an offer we didn't like. So we already got that data. We re-verify it, re-sign the part one ticket, and then would be able to easily submit it off to a new carrier without having to bother the client for more data.
So it really does help in the end the customer the most because they're not
It,
bogged down by
exactly. Customer
re-entering.
customer mainly, but the agent too. Like it takes 20 minutes to fill out these data apps that you got, and all they're doing is taking that data and they're just bridging it over to a paper PDF form, right? One of the other things that's holding the industry back is the Department of Insurance and of every state. There's 50 states, right? And so you have to get your life insurance paper apps. You have to get those approved by each state, of what's being asked and stuff like that. So that's
So
another thing
a
that's
lot
holding
of
it
the
back.
bottleneck is really legacy systems. It's not really bad actors, but it's constraints from legacy systems and what is the motivation that they need to
Yep,
find to move forward.
yep. And really
You
their ability to exchange data, right? They're
right.
not good at it at all.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that moves forward. You are at a fascinating crossroads, open SaaS versus proprietary advantage. How are you thinking about that?
It's a decision I've really been struggling with, right? Do I keep this all to myself and use it as our tool to recruit more better agents on Insurance Geek, or do we let any agent out there use it as their SaaS? So right now you can kind of do both. So I think we're looking in more to a hybrid model as we roll out here in the next quarter. It'll be both independent agents who don't have any affiliation with Insurance Geek or not part of our organization that could use the software as well.
So that's you're thinking about that in the future, or that's how it is
It's set up
the
for that
plan
right now,
right now?
actually. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for you, what does success look like in the next 2 to 3 years?
Being able to run everything with every carrier, quote easily, all through Fat Agent, never leaving our system, not having to go figure out their terrible backends and the agent portals that are just terrible. You just can't find anything. It's just they're all over the place, right? So I just want to be able to see every single step of the a life cycle of a lead from quote to some app to from the lead generation to quote to apply to issue to submission and force and to commissions paid. So that entire life cycle without ever leaving our application is the goal.
Okay. And what is the one metric that would tell you your product is winning?
New business volume, leads and everything. I mean, there's not really one metric. Obviously, the end game is premium and force, right? So we want to have growth. But as long as it's making my job easier, it's a win for me, right? So, and that's what it's doing. Not just the desktop app, but the mobile app. is just a game changer too. Like it's the full app right in your hand. You got your entire agency there. But the best part about the mobile app is those real-time leads that are coming in, whether they're on a chat and you've got that leads, you got that data and your agency right in your pocket. So you can be, out of the office or on vacation and still kind of got the app right there with push notifications and just everything right at your fingertips.
And not being trained per se in tech, how did you develop the systems yourself?
a lot of a lot of research, a lot of reading, a lot of YouTube, and a lot of just going out and doing it and trying it. So it's I've been learning every day. So I got some good um YouTube videos out there and just started learning.
Did you have a passion for that before you jumped in of always taking on new opportunities to learn?
Yeah, I did. I'm kinda
Okay.
entrepreneur at heart. I've been like that since I was in high school, right? I mean, I've been selling and sales is really my thing, but, now I love building products and apps, and then I still do love the insurance side of it, but, it can be tedious, especially with all the broken systems out there. It's kinda one of those jobs you love to hate.
But now you've made it at least easier for a lot of agents to
Yeah.
move
Oh, yeah.
forward with.
Yeah, and it's gonna get even better. So I'm about 3, 4 versions ahead of where Fat Agent is in my head and just not enough time in the day to be able to get everything pushed out and get the code right and make sure that it's ready for scale.
You seem to constantly know what the next chapter may be for Patty, as opposed to
Yeah.
being done or completed, if
I
you will.
I
How is that
don't
important?
I don't necessarily know. It's the problems we face on a daily basis is what how her next evolution evolves. So the response ratio, that's what prompted me for Patty Closer, right? And I was reading over my agents' kind of replies and how they're working their leads, trying to help them close more leads and write more policies. And it was time consuming. I'm like, man, I got to take my knowledge here and put it into a framework. And I tested this over 3, 4 months, right? And I'm building and adding to it and taking away until it was really dialed in, and like I said, now it's like on another level. Just the ability to be able to say the right thing to the right lead at the right time is a game changer.
And one final question on that aspect of Patty Closer. How does she know what to say to close? Is that from your historical experience and
Yep,
how you've closed deals over the years she's learned from those
yep.
tools?
Yep, so
Okay.
the historical experience is how I've trained her based on that, on what to say, but as far as what she knows to say next, she's gonna look at the lead, look at the data set, right? Like, is it, auto insurance lead, home insurance, life insurance? Is it IUL out of life insurance or term life insurance? She understands that. She can see any notes that the agents left in the file, but she'll also go back and read any of the prior SMS and any of the prior emails, and so she can prompt up a reply based on where that lead is in the life cycle.
Right. So
And
she has
that's the
all of
big.
your historical knowledge plus the entire conversation historical
Yep,
knowledge from each venue and is
yep.
able to
And
synthesize
and
that.
she and not just when and where the conversation should be in the life cycle, the sales of the framework, but it's also the product knowledge and sales product knowledge that I've trained it on.
Okay. Well, I'd love to close our conversation out with a few various lightning questions for you.
Okay.
What is one tool you use weekly that genuinely changed how you operate, and how so? Just follow up on that.
Everything. I run everything by it. I like ChatGPT too, not, but they're just different. When it's development work and I'm trying to learn something there, I'm, accessing Claude for that. Within Claude, I've gotten really good at building out projects too. So I got an agent project for, email HTML design, right? Just building out email templates and stuff like that. So I'll take the copy from one and be able to put that into a well formatted email template. So Claude is something I use every day. I've built out a ton of different project knowledges, and I can just go in there and quickly put in whatever I need on each project and get the right answers.
What is one or a misconception leaders have about AI and sales driven businesses?
A misconception. Um, I think one thing they should be worried about is it taking jobs because it can do everything that a human can do, but better.
Okay. And one thing you would never automate, no matter how good AI becomes.
I don't know if there's anything you couldn't automate it if you could do it right. Even on the outbound calls, there's AI agents who can make calls. We talked about that kind
Mhm.
of, but I had an AI agent call me, not too long ago. I didn't even know it was an AI agent, and it actually booked me on an appointment, and I didn't think that could ever happen. At the end, I had to ask it, "Hey, is this a real person?" Sure enough, it wasn't, and it booked me on a call. So I don't know if there are any limitations, honestly.
Were you disappointed or intrigued that it wasn't a real
Oh,
person?
I was intrigued. I was ready to build my own. First thing I when I got off that call was start researching voice agents and everything in between, and how to get rid of the latency in the call, and how to program the AI to not over speak, and interrupt. So, um, that's coming. Patty will be able to make calls soon.
You're already on to the next once you
I am.
found out that
I'm ready.
happened.
I'm ready. She'll follow up with every lead that comes in there in real time, and she'll pre-qualify them, book the appointment,
Do you
everything. So,
do you have any advice for founders that are building in regulated industries?
yeah, just make sure you're not breaking the rules, right? Make sure you're not following the standards and guidelines and doing the things the right way.
That's always a good piece of judgment to end on, follow the rules.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when it comes to AI, I know the rules are always changing, so
You're
that'll
not
be
kidding.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well well, Brad, thank you so much for joining us today and telling us a story about Patty and Fat Ticket and how you were able to use your passion for business and learning to really elevate the insurance business and help agents everywhere.
Thank
Really
you.
enjoyed our conversation today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And for our listeners, you can find Brad's information in the show notes. Until next time.